Students, good morning. This is Somasundari. Today we are discussing about History Unit 1 and the topic is the Armistice and Treaty of Versailles. Before starting the class, I will ask a few questions from previous topic. Are you ready? Okay, let's start. Question number 1. What is the Battle of Marne remembered for? What is the Battle of Marne remembered for? Answer is trench warfare. Trench warfare. Question number 2. The First Balkan War came to end in dash. The First Balkan War came to end in dash. Answer is Treaty of London. Treaty of London. Question number 3. When was Balkan League formed? When was Balkan League formed? Answer is March 1912. March 1912. The Second Balkan War ended with the signing of the dash. Question number 4. The Second Balkan War ended with the signing of the dash. Answer is Treaty of Bucharest. Treaty of Bucharest. Question number 5. Russia wanted peace and consequently it signed the Treaty of Brest-Litovsk with dash. Russia wanted peace and consequently it signed the Treaty of Brest-Litovsk with dash. Answer is Germany. Germany. Okay, students, I hope you are all got correct answer, isn't it? Well done. Now, we are going to today's topic. The Armistice and Treaty of Versailles. Germany ultimately surrendered in November 1918. The armistice took effect from 11th November 1918. Germany was forced to accept harsh terms by the political situation at home with the abdication of the Kaiser. Peace Conference in Paris. The Peace Conference opened in Paris in January 1919, 2 months after the signing of the Armistice. Woodrow Wilson from USA, Leo George from England, Clemenceau from France played a very important part in the deliberations. Faced with the threat of the renewed war, the German government was forced to agree to the terms. On 28 June 1919, a peace treaty was signed in the Hall of Mirrors at Versailles.
The Treaty of Versailles, 1919. World War I officially came to an end with the signing of the Treaty of Versailles on June 28, 1919. 32 countries had come together in Paris in January 1919 to hold a conference which would make peace after the First World War. It would be dominated by the Big Three: David Lloyd George representing Britain, George Clemenceau representing France, and Woodrow Wilson representing the USA. Germany was not invited. The Big Three wanted different things for Germany and disagreed on how harshly they were to be punished, reflecting how their countries were treated in the war. They had to negotiate with each other until there was a compromise. This was difficult because Wilson was opposed to harsh punishment for Germany. The USA had not been involved in the war as long as Britain and France and had not received as much damage. He wanted to prevent another world war by creating the League of Nations based on his 14 points to ensure Germany would not be destroyed and that Germany shouldn't be blamed for the war. Clemenceau's aims were the harshest of the three, representing the damage Germany had done to France's land and people and its threatening proximity. He wanted revenge and to punish Germany, to return Alsace-Lorraine to France, an independent Rhineland, no League of Nations, Germany to pay huge reparations for the damage and losses caused. The disbandment of the German army so that Germany would never be strong enough to attack France again. Lloyd George was an in-between. This reflected Britain, which had little land damage but high war losses. He wanted a punishment that would be tough enough to please those who wanted to make Germany pay, but would leave Germany strong enough to still trade. Land for Britain's empire, to safeguard Britain's naval supremacy. When the Treaty of Versailles was ready, Germany was shown the document, but there was no negotiation. Their rebuttal ignored. On 28 June 1919, the delegates met at the Hall of Mirrors in the Palace of Versailles near Paris and forced 2 German representatives to sign it. See Part 2 to learn what the terms of the Treaty of Versailles were and the devastating effects it would have for the future of Germany.
Next, provisions of the treaty. Students, it's very important 5-mark question, so listen carefully. Highlights the provisions of the Treaty of Versailles relating to Germany. Germany was found guilty of starting the war and therefore was to pay reparations for the losses suffered. The reparation commission set up for deciding the compensation decided on 6,600 million pounds to be paid in installments. All central powers were directed to pay war indemnity. The German army was to be limited to 1 lakh men. A small navy was allowed, but there were to be no submarines and no air force. The union of Austria and Germany was, for Britain and Germany, was to be acknowledged and respect the independence of Austria. Germany was forced to give up all the rights and titles over her overseas possession to be allies. All German colonies became mandated territories under the League of Nations. Germany was forced to revoke the Treaty of Brest-Litovsk with Russia and Bucharest with Bulgaria. Alsace-Lorraine was returned to France. The former Russian territories of Finland, Estonia, Latvia and Lithuania were to be independent. Northern Schleswig was given to Denmark and some small districts to Belgium. Poland was recreated with a corridor to the Baltic containing the German port of Danzig, which was to be a free city under the auspices of League of Nations. The Rhineland was to be occupied by the Allies. The area on the east bank of the Rhine was to be demilitarized. President Wilson laid down his 14 points, which were to be followed by the Allies. The most important one of the highlight was to be need for general association of nations for the purpose of affording mutual guarantees of political independence and territorial integrity to great and small states alike. One of his interesting points was an opportunity to Russia for the independent determination of her own political development and national policy and assistance also of every kind that she may need or desire. Next, criticism of the peace settlement. The defeated powers were absent from negotiations. The peace settlement, a dictated one, was based on the principle to the victor belongs to the spoils and the allies or the victors. Self-determination was the principle, which was one of the 14 points of Woodrow Wilson for restoring peace applied to all the peoples except the German. The reparation of 6,600 million pounds was beyond Germany's capacity to pay. Germany was weakened politically and economically, but instead of having the large Russian and Austro-Hungarian empires on her eastern frontier, she was now bordered by small, weak and new states. Wilson bettered the Germans and Austrians, to whom he had made promises. In 1920, the United States took to the policy of isolation when the Senate refused to ratify the Treaty of Versailles. Only a greatly weakened France, with a qualified support to Britain, was left to face Germany's potential strength. Italy was much disappointed at the peace settlement. Despite suffering heavily, she was given merely small places such as Trieste, Isteria, and South Real. The population of Europe was so mixed that it was impossible to draw up clear national frontiers with ethnic homogeneity. Finally, the settlement created many national minorities within states. Countries gave promises to respect the rights of minorities, but often relations turned bitter. Separate treaties were drawn up and signed by the allies with Austria, Hungary, Bulgaria, and Turkey. The treaty with Turkey, Treaty of Sevres, though accepted by the Sultan, failed because of the resistance of Mustafa Kemal Pasha and his followers. Next, fallout of the First World War. The First World War left a deep impact on European society and politics. Though conscription and through the air raids, the war had involved and affected for more of the population than in the past. In the whole of the previous century, from the Napoleonic Wars to the Balkan Wars of 1912 to 1913, Europe had lost fewer than 4.5 million men. Now, at least 8 million had died in 4 years, while more than twice as many were wounded and many crippled for life. Millions more had succumbed to the worldwide influenza of 1918. The outcome in all countries was imbalance between the sexes, a shortage of men. Soldiers came to be placed above civilians. Aggressive war, propaganda, and national honor occupied center stage in the public sphere. Popular support grew in favor of dictatorship in state governments. The war and its aftermath turned out to be searing period of history. The most striking of all was the rise and consolidation of Soviet Union, the USSR, or the Union of Socialist and Soviet Republics, as it was called, the United States of America, escaping all the troubles the Western Europe had to suffer, prospered exceedingly in the post-war years. America entered the war was a debater country, but it emerged as the moneylender to the world in the aftermath of the war. Another outstanding event of this period was the awakening of the colonies and their inspired attempt to gain freedom. In Asia and Africa, powerful movements and some places even rebellions against Western imperialism became order of the day. Turkey's rebirth as a nation, thanks to the role played by Mustafa Kemal Pasha, was remarkable. Kemal Pasha modernized Turkey and changed it out all the recognition. He put an end to the Sultanate and the Caliphate. The support to the Soviet Union was to great help to him. All the struggles for freedom in Asia and Africa illustrated how the new spirit abroad was affecting the minds of the men and women in distant countries of the East stimulously. The war gave a great fillip to the women's movement in the West and the East.